Hi, I'm Paul Feinberg. I'm host of UCLA Anderson's podcast. My guest today is Professor Bill Ouchi, and we'll be talking about UCLA and entrepreneurship. Bill, why don't we just start by you telling us a little bit about the research you've done and the report you've written?
Yes, UCLA has an outside sponsored research budget of about $1.2 billion a year, which makes us probably the #1 U.S. university. I'd estimate that we have about 2,000 faculty inventors. We should be converting our inventions into new startup companies and in licenses to established companies at a much higher rate than we are now. With the kinds of financial stringencies that are going to face all of higher education for the foreseeable future, it's incumbent on us not to rest on the sources of revenue that we're accustomed to, but to be entrepreneurs ourselves, and that's what this is all about. Now, about 70% of all university patents in the U.S. are in the health sciences. Most of the remainder are from engineering and the physical sciences, although there are some others. UCLA has a decided advantage in that because the key now to much of health science invention is a bringing together of engineering with medicine. And to do that, you must have the engineers and the doctors cheek by jowl next to each other, and we have that. We have a first-class engineering school located right next to the medical school, and right next door to them are the departments of chemistry, physics, biology, pharmacology, and so on. And so when they do an experiment together, they can all walk over a few steps, cut open the mouse together, look inside of it, and see what's going on. And that's crucial. In the area of cancer research, for example, there are only 3 medical centers in the world that have the necessary flow of patients to really do top-grade research. And those are Memorial Sloan Kettering in New York City, MD Anderson in Houston, and UCLA. And of those 3, only UCLA has the advantages that I mentioned earlier of having the entire intellectual globe in one physical spot. So we have huge advantages. We need to learn now to take full use of those and realize the incredible cornucopia of inventiveness of our faculty in the commercial world.
To what extent are these collaborations going on now? I mean, surely you're not the first to notice that the engineering school sits next door to the medical school, so I'm guessing that there's a bit of this going on. So where do we stand now?
Well, we do a fair amount of invention, but just if you take a rate of return, which I've calculated for all major universities, in which the numerator is our annual revenues from license royalties and by turning equity positions in startup companies into cash. That's the numerator. And the denominator is the $1.2 billion that we spend on research.
Bill, you said earlier that at Columbia, business people are running the operation. With that in mind, what role can UCLA Anderson play where the top management minds are on the faculty and our students have a management focus?
Well, one of the other advantages that UCLA has is the Price Center at the Anderson School and the longtime entrepreneurial leadership provided by Professor Al Osborne has permeated the campus. And the deans, whether they're in medicine, dentistry, or the physical sciences, are all aware of and all in contact with Al in the Price Center. So Al and I, in many cases, are going around and visiting together and offering the assistance of the Price Center to the other units at UCLA that have the scientists that are doing the inventing, but don't have access to the business people that they need to give them advice, and don't have access to the faculty who have an interest in, and some at least understanding of, the business of invention. So I think that many people at UCLA are feeling very grateful right now. And in fact, my whole project started because the new Vice Chancellor for Research, who happens also to be the Chief of Surgical Oncology at UCLA, asked Dean Judy Olian if she had a suggestion on how he should start out to fix this process at UCLA. And he had his own ideas, and she said to him, no, don't do it that way. Go talk to one of our faculty, Bill Ouchi, and see what he thinks. So he's very grateful to the Anderson School, and it's clear that we're going to be and are very much at the center of this revolution that's about to begin.
You said Columbia is the top in this area, and you referenced Stanford and some of the other schools. Now, unlike Columbia and Stanford, we're a public school. Does that have any implications as to what we can and can't do, or what our incentives are to do or not do?
Yes, we've all learned to live with the fact that we're a public institution, and not only that, but we are the largest educational enterprise in the world. You know, for example, people worry about what they've all been reading in the papers, that the University of California is about to take a $500 million budget cut, according to our new governor. And I say to them, well, okay, 500 million is the numerator, but what's the denominator? The denominator is 22 billion. That's the annual budget of the University of California. So while 500 million is a hardship, it's a 2% cut. So this is a massive intellectual enterprise. On the other hand, we have to learn how to be small and fast within a large and slow, so that we combine the power, the mass, the stability of the great University of California with the ability to move quickly. So what I'm proposing is a system that will rely on each dean to take their own initiatives. I'm not in favor of something that asks that all the deans hold hands and sing Kumbaya in order to be entrepreneurial. That's not what it's about. And number two, I've proposed that we create a new off-campus institution that will take the ownership rights of our inventions and then will act as an independent institution to file patents, to make proof of concept grants where it feels appropriate, and to engage in the business of negotiating the best deals. The kind of deal, for example, if a university makes a deal with a startup company that demands cash up front, they're helping to guarantee that that new company will fail. Because the one thing that a new company does not have is cash. Well, if we have an independent institution, we'll be able to take equity positions and make use of those equity positions in a way that's very difficult for the university to do because of the rules that the state has imposed on us. So we're searching for new solutions and new ways to do things.
Entrepreneurial ventures require risk, and you said earlier that Columbia's greatest successes have been their home runs, which means they probably have had a few strikeouts and a couple of singles and doubles to go with those home runs. How do you think we can change the risk tolerance of a place like UCLA, which is in some sense a big government bureaucracy where risk is not necessarily part of their everyday way of doing things? How do you make people understand that sometimes we're going to spend money on a patent and it's not going to pay off that time?
So my answer is that we're not well equipped to take risk within the structure of the university, and thus we need to create a new structure that's owned by but outside of the university. My example is at the University of Wisconsin-Madison campus, which has created something called WARF, the Wisconsin Alumni Research Foundation. At the Madison campus, when faculty have an invention, they are obliged to disclose that invention not to the university but to WARF. WARF decides if it wants to file a patent application, and if it does, it asks the faculty member, would you like us to do this on your behalf and pay all the bills, or would you prefer to keep title and pursue it yourself? And most faculty prefer to go with WARF. WARF may then, in some cases, make a $100,000 or so additional grant to push the invention to a stage at which its commercial value is clearer, trying to find the point at which they can maximize the financial value of that invention to the university. And then what happens is that WARF licenses or starts makes agreements to start new companies, taking an equity position, and then it realizes the fruits later on. Each year, Wharf makes a cash payment of between $60 and $80 million to the Madison campus and puts the extra money back into Wharf's endowment. The endowment of Wharf is today $1.9 billion. Now, the payments to the campus could be higher, but they know that the day will come when they will have a drought that might last 20 or 30 years because this is a risky business. So they've kept the payments at a level at which they can sustain these payments forever, even if they have a more modest rate of return. Now, how did Wharf get that big? Well, one of their professors discovered vitamin D in 1925, and they've been able to extend that patent now into the third and fourth generation of analogs of that molecule, and that's generated 70% of their revenues. Now, they've also had significant additional winners, but the point again is this is a game of home runs. So as the head of the research office at Columbia said to me, this is a game, because it's a game of home runs, because home runs are rare, this is a game in which size matters. Size are us. We have more size, especially in the health sciences, than any other university in the world, right here at UCLA. Now, if you look at what's happened in the places that have maintained a vibrant economy around this country, everybody will point to Silicon Valley, where Berkeley and Stanford provided the cornucopia of invention that have created the companies and the jobs. They will point to the fact that California is the #1 agricultural exporter in the United States and has built a huge wine industry from nothing. All of it largely thanks to the efforts of research at UC Davis. They will point to the development of biotechnology from La Jolla to San Diego, thanks in large measure to the gravity for mines, first-rate mines from UC San Diego. Or they will point to the electronics revolution around Austin, Texas, anchored by the University of Texas, or the effect at Route 128 around Boston, anchored by MIT, Harvard, and the other universities there. Now, each of these centers of research has a particular style of entrepreneurship, a particular style of investing, and its own group of investors. It hasn't happened in Southern California. Why? Because UCLA has to be the leader. USC, Caltech, UC Irvine, Claremont colleges, Pepperdine, the Cal State universities all have an important role to play. But only UCLA has its own world-class hospital right next door to its own world-class medical school, basic sciences, School of Engineering and Applied Sciences, Department of Physical Sciences, Department of Health Sciences, a great graduate school of business, 100% of the components necessary to reach critical mass. And once we do that at UCLA, it will have an impact on all of the other universities in the region, and it will give rise in Southern California to the same kind of entrepreneurial spirit that has kept other regions of the U.S. healthy. Southern California has been waiting for UCLA to seize its natural leadership position, and the time has come when the stars are aligned, and we're about to do that.
Okay, so we're talking, it's spring of 2011. Take me through the next, I don't know, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. What, under the best case scenario, how did this play out? What is the timetable? Where do you see it going?
Well, it's my hope that as of next fall, the beginning of the next school year, several deans will establish business advisory boards, which are domain-specific, not developmental boards, but boards of serial entrepreneurs, of people who have long business experience in big companies, of investors all the way from angel up to small and medium-sized venture capital, all the way up through the big private equity firms, bringing together scientists who have been entrepreneurs. Mike Phelps at UCLA, who invented the PET scanner, Arie Belldegrun and his colleagues who have started now 4 successful companies that have developed treatments for cancer and other diseases. The founders of Amgen, who were from the faculty at UCLA. Paul Terasaki, who started the leading company in organ transplant tissue rejection analysis. We have so many, it goes on and on and on. So we need to bring these people together, and that will start in the form of business advisory boards in each of the major schools at UCLA that has inventive output. At the same time, I hope that by then we will be well underway to having defined the legal structure of an independent institution that will be able to raise the money necessary to patent at the level of 3-4 times the number of inventions that we are patenting now each year, that will be able to sustain those applications for the 12 or 15 years in some cases that it will take until the patent issues, that will be able to make proof of concept grants where appropriate, and have the know-how to be able to engage in effective licenses and agreements to start up companies, all led by a board of experienced business people who are friends of UCLA and members of the Bruin family. Then I expect we will have a surge of new educational programs modeled after the programs at the Price Center at the Anderson School, but that will be located in the School of Medicine, in the School of Dentistry, in the divisions of health sciences and physical sciences. There are already programs underway in the School of Engineering, which has been doing this now for several years. So I think educational programs, business advisory boards located at the deans, and then a central off-campus institution that is a source of capital and making of the investment decisions. Those are the 3 legs of the stool. I expect to have all of them well underway by next fall.